All right, good morning, everybody. I have been telling y'all for a couple of weeks that I had this message that I wanted to share with the church family, and really it has to do with this illustration. I've actually shown it before, so some of you will have seen this before, but I felt like the Lord just wanted me to do it again and wanted me to talk about some specific things. So here's the illustration. I have this jar, and I have these big rocks right here, as you see. And as hard as I've tried, I've not been able, well, let me just show you what I've been able to do. I've been able to put 4 of these rocks in here, 4 of these rocks, like that, in the jar. And as hard as I've tried, I've not been able to get any other big rocks in the jar. Now, here's my question for us. And I know some of you have seen this, so you know the answer, but is the jar full? Is the jar full as it relates to these rocks? Is it full? Or, you know, I guess I'm just asking, is it full? And the answer is, well, yeah, right? Well, maybe not. Watch this. Is the jar full? And I guess if we were just talking about big rocks, we'd have to say, yeah, it is. But, of course, that's not the point of the illustration. Maybe it is. But anyway, it's not really full, because I can take these smaller rocks and I can put a lot more of these smaller rocks in the jar, and I can keep on getting them in there like this until, you know, if I were to ask you now, is the jar full? If I was to ask you now, is the jar full? Of course, you're smart enough now. You know that it's probably not full. And of course, the answer to that would be, you're right. It's not quite full. So watch this. All right. So here's the question again: is the jar full? And you know, we might say, well, it's full, yeah, because we can't get any more rocks in there. But can we get anything else in there? And the answer is, yeah, we can get something else. Now, I really love y'all, because I'm using my sand from Oman for this illustration. And I'm hoping I can recover it. But anyway, we can take the sand from the deserts of Oman, and as you see, there's still room in the jar. I'm getting more stuff in this jar than I thought I was going to. Hey, I found a rock. I just came out of the sand, guys. A rock from Oman. Gotta save that. Isn't this cool? I'm getting more and more in the jar until, wow. What do you think? Now, if you've seen the illustration, you'd say, oh, I'm not going to be tricked again. Or maybe if you even haven't seen the illustration, you're probably thinking, I'm not going to be tricked, because I'm not going to say it's full. And you know what? I'm actually going to end the illustration here, because I want to save my sand, and I want to get my sand back out of this jar. And if I do the 4th thing in the illustration, I'll lose my sand. So I'm sorry, but I'm not going to do the 4th part. If I was going to do the 4th part, what I would be telling you, right, and what I'd go do now is get some water, and I'd add water to the jar, and the jar still wouldn't be full, because water would seep down in there amongst the sand, and then I think we'd have to say that the jar is full. What's the point of this illustration? Now, many of you have seen it already. I think David and I have both done this before. But, you know, if you've never seen this, you're probably thinking the point of this illustration is that I can always get one more thing in my life, right? I can always get one more thing in my life. And honestly, I think the illustration sort of says that, right? That we can always get one more little thing in our life until there comes a point where you can't get anything else in the jar. But really, that's not the point of the illustration. And the Lord wanted me to share 3 things with you. So real quickly, here's the first one. And it's the point of the illustration. If you don't put the big rocks in the jar first, you're never going to get them in. If you don't put the big rocks in first, you're never going to get them in. So if you put all these little rocks in and sand in your life, all the little things in your life, then the big, most important priorities in your life, you're not going to get them in if you don't put them in first. And I felt like the Lord wanted me to say to us, I think that a lot of us maybe have forgotten that. That we've forgotten that there's certain priorities in our life that need to go in first, and we've got to put them in first. And I want to challenge us to put the big rocks in our life first. Now, the second thing that the Lord put on my heart that I want to share with you is about the big rocks is that we need to identify what's the big rock. We need to identify what's the big rock, because if you don't identify what's the big rock,
then all the little rocks are going to go in ahead of time. And then when it comes to put the big rocks in your life, you're not going to put them in. So one of the things that you have to do is you have to identify what is a big rock in your life. What is a priority in your life? And then get it in your life first. And can I say this? I mean, this is kind of like a tangent note to that second point, that the big rocks in your life change with different times in your life. In other words, I think there's some big rocks that fit in, that all of us could say, this is a big rock for all of us, okay? But then there's big rocks in my life that maybe are not big rocks in your life. Let me illustrate. If you're here and you're a college student, or you're a high school student, can I say that a big rock in your life are your academics? I mean, if you're a college student or a high school student, big rocks are your academics. That's a big rock in your life. And so you know what that means? The extracurricular activities like sports and all that kind of stuff, they're little rocks, they're sand, they're water, whatever. But if you don't put the big rock of academics in your life, then what's going to happen is you're not going to have time for the big rock because you're going to have to put all these other little rocks in your life. That's not true for me. I'm not in school. Academics is not a big rock for me, but it is for some of you. If you're a dad here with little children at home, a big rock in your life are your little children and those kids at home. And if you don't put that big rock in your life first, if you don't make that a priority in your life first, then what's going to happen is your hobbies, your extracurriculars, all those things that you enjoy doing, maybe that are great, what's going to happen is you're going to put them in your life, and then when you go to put the big rock of time with your children, you're not going to have it. You're not going to have the time there because you've put all these other little things in your life. So the Lord just kind of pressed on my heart. I know this is really mystical, but the Lord's sort of impressed on my heart to share with us. One, we have to recognize that if I don't put the big rocks in my life first, you're not going to get there. Number two, I've got to recognize what the big rocks in my life are. And I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but you ought to sit down and determine what are the big rocks in my life. What are the priorities in my life? And then make sure that you schedule them, that you put them in first, that you make sure they're there. Because if you don't, everything else will crowd them out. And the third thing that the Lord put on my heart, and this is where I hate stuff like this because I feel like in the end it sounds like I'm manipulating you, and I don't want to do that. But this is what the Lord put on my heart. I want to share with you that if you're a part of our church family, you know what's a big rock in your life? Our church family should be a big rock in your life. It should be a priority to you. It should be one of the things that if anything's not going to fit, it's not going to be this, because I'm putting this in first. And when I say our church family, what am I talking about? I'm talking about loving one another. I'm talking about serving one another. But I'm talking about three specific things. One of them is this meeting right now. I want to say to all of you, I really believe this meeting needs to be it's part of being a part of the Bacon's Castle family. And this Sunday meeting, it needs to be a big rock in my life. But can I be honest? Here's what I feel like so often it's not a big rock for us. It's just a little pebble that maybe I think it's a big rock, but I don't put it in first. And so what happens is all the other little things, sporting events and all the extracurricular activities I might want to be involved in, they don't let me put this in because there's no room. But please don't misunderstand me. I understand that, man, things are going to keep us away. We got vacations and all that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what seems to be happening in our church family is that being a part of us on Sunday morning is not a big rock. If it fits in, great. If it doesn't, that's great too. And I really want to challenge us. Make Bacon's Castle, your family, a big rock in your life. Choose to put it in first. I'm talking about this meeting. I'm talking about home groups. There's three things I'm talking about. I'm talking about Sunday school, I'm talking about this meeting, and I'm talking about home groups. And I really want to ask you all to see whether I'm right. You know, in the book of Thessalonica, I believe it is, Paul says, the Bereans were more noble than anybody else. Does anybody remember why they're more noble than anybody else? Because they searched the Scriptures to see if these things were so. And in this mini-sermon that I have for you today, as I ask you to search the Scriptures and see if what I'm saying is so, that your commitment, involvement, love, service, and devotion to your I should have smiled more.